The MV7 plus what? Well, it's plus the original Shure MV7, plus a few updates to the exterior of the microphone, plus a few updates to the interior of the microphone. What did they change? What's new? What could be better? Who do I think should buy this microphone? If you have the MV7 already, should you get the MV7 Plus? If you want a Shure SM7B, which I'm pointing to over there, which I will bring in later so that you can hear this microphone against that microphone, because a lot of people are looking at the Shure MV7 or the Shure MV7 Plus as a substitute for the SM7B. This microphone was inspired by the SM7B, obviously, just based on how it looks. The question is it also inspired by the SM7B and how it sounds? We're going to find out. I think it is. Some people think it isn't. You have to decide for yourself. I'm going to make sure you have that opportunity. If you're looking for a microphone and you don't have any of these, is the MV7 Plus the one to buy? Okay, so what's the setup you're hearing right now? You're hearing the MV7 Plus plugged in via USB. You can go USB or XLR. I'm also recording the XLR version, so I'll flip over to that later. But really, this microphone is, I think, primarily a USB microphone because that is where you get some of the effects that come in. And you control that through the new app, which is actually coming out called MOTIV Mix. That's where you will change the DSP, the digital signal processing settings that are inside the microphone, which is actually the most interesting part to me, because that means we can set this microphone up to be the way we want it to sound, take it somewhere else like into our phone and have those settings. So I'm recording in the MOTIV Mix app. The microphone is using its auto gain feature. Normally I would use manual gain, but because it's a feature of this microphone, we're using it. It works just fine. The point is that if you're not sure if I should put it at +9 gain, where should the meters be? Should I be at +2 gain? Should it be green? Should it be yellow? Just pick auto and it'll work just fine. And if you want to use manual setup, the app has a feature called Soundcheck, and it'll tell you, are you in the right place or not? The tone is set to natural. So basically it's a flat EQ curve. The original SM7B has some adjustments you can make on the microphone itself. And that's what tone does for the processing inside the MV7 Plus. So I have that at natural, so I'm not affecting anything. I'm going to change that moving forward because it's actually not where I would want it to be, but I want you to have sort of the flattest, neutral sounding audio coming out of this in the beginning. There's a real-time denoiser. So we're going to dive into that and demo that, but I have it on because this is hands down my favorite feature of the processing that this mic can do. Is very good. I'm a big fan, and so much so that I would normally do processing in post-production. I'm baking it in. I'm doing it real time. You're hearing it right now. I'm totally happy recording with it on. So the real-time denoiser, very cool. It's on. There's another feature called popper stopper. That's for the plosives that come out of your mouth and hit the microphone, P's and B's. There's a high pass filter. I have that currently set to off. Generally, I'm going to have that off anyways. But if we have a popper stopper, why do we have a high pass filter? We'll explore that a little bit. Then, of course, the LEDs that you are seeing here on the side, which are different. It's part of the upgrade from the MV7. I do think it's an upgrade because it looks better. And so I have those set to the default, which is what an audio meter looks like. Green fades into yellow, and then red if you're clipping. So that is one of the questions. Is this just for looks, or is it an actual meter indicating your level? We're going to talk about that. So I'm sitting here editing this, and once in a while you're going to hear a popping sound. That was, as far as I can tell, created from recording inside the MOTIV Mix app. The recording part of that software seems like it needs an update. The one I'm using is beta. So sure, can you fix the clicks and pops? And I have the mute lock on because I can't tell you the number of times I've actually hit the mute button, which is part of this touch panel. I've hit it so many times. Just today, setting this up, I would turn the microphone like this and it would turn off, and then I'd turn it and it would turn on, and I kept checking the cable, and I'm like, what is going on? Did the mic already break? This is not good. No, my finger kept hitting the mute. When I grab this microphone, my finger goes right on to that touch panel and it mutes it. And I've recorded a lot of demos on mute trying to figure out what was going on. So I have that locked. Fortunately, you can lock it because almost inevitably during a recording, you probably might make an adjustment to the microphone. And if you hit that mute button, first of all, even for someone who has experience, I'm like, what is wrong with the microphone? Because I'm not used to having that. But mostly you just don't want to miss something you're trying to record. You can see if I'm pressing it now, it flashes 3 times red. And that is to indicate that the mute lock is indeed on, and it will not mute right now. I can see it recording, and it's telling me that. And I'll talk about how I would like to see that changed. Okay, let's start with the upgrades to the outside of the microphone. That would be the windscreen, the touch panel, and the USB. So this windscreen has been improved. It's actually been made a little longer than what we had on the original MV7, which was this short, stubby windscreen that really almost kind of didn't fit. It seems like you had a gap here, and it was pretty loose, and it just kind of looked cheesy to me. But we got a longer, better fitting windscreen, which actually then makes it look more like the SM7B. And you would even see people take the SM7B windscreen, or they would buy one and put it on the original MV7 to either make it look better or make it look more like an SM7B. But that addition to length is not just cosmetic. It's actually an important upgrade to how the microphone performs. A lot of people said they had problems with plosives on the original MV7, and this windscreen is right against the grill. There's no cushion there. So those plosives are going to hit the windscreen, and this is not going to do very much because it's, just a thin piece of foam, but the grill and capsule is right there. Well, now the windscreen being longer creates a gap. So there's probably like less than a 1-inch gap in there, but now your plosives are hitting the windscreen. It has some air underneath that. The capsule's not right underneath the windscreen. You have that gap, and that's actually part of how the SM7B works, except that the capsule is actually set back into the metal grill. So it's pretty far away. So it's a good 2 inches away, because the original SM7B also doesn't have a gap from the windscreen to the grill, but the capsule from the top of the grill has a gap. So it mimics more of the SM7B in that way, and that's going to help with plosives, and that's great. I mentioned that they added a popper stopper in the software, so they did 2 things to work on the plosive issue. But sticking to the outside, the touch panel has been upgraded. The old MV7, I say old, it's not that old now, had a lot of things going on the touch panel. A lot of buttons, and the LEDs were just these little circles and different things you can press. I did a whole review demoing all of those things, which you can check out. But now it's very clean. It's just one LED on the outside. It's still a touch panel. As I talked about, you can accidentally mute yourself or on purpose mute yourself with just one single touch there. You got to be careful. It's going to make noise. It's not too bad. I'm tapping it. It's not how I would press mute. You would come in here and just gently touch it, and that would mute it. And of course, it's subjective, but to me, it just looks better. Generally, I don't want LEDs on my microphone, but if they're gonna be there, I think this is the best integration of LEDs on a microphone because it looks good, but it's subtle enough. Something else I wanted to add, that while this is very clean, we did remove the ability, or Shure did, to control some of the settings on the outside of the microphone. The original MV7, you could control some of the settings with the buttons. You could adjust the gain. So that's a pretty big deal. You don't have to go into the app to make all the settings. So this looks cleaner, but there were some things taken away when they removed some of the stuff from the touch panel. And beyond that, you can change the colors. I have the default, what you would know as a standard audio meter, where green is a level below, generally -18. When it starts to get into yellow, you're like -18 to -6. And then if you saw red, you'd be in that -6 to 0 range. So that really made me ask the question, is this an audio meter or is it just for looks? Obviously, it's reacting to my voice. From what I understand, it is actually showing the level of the audio. But because I'm over the top of the microphone and the LED, it depends on how you have the microphone mounted, but in a lot of cases, it's going to be hard to see that. And so you have to get off a microphone to kind of really see it. And I'm seeing it go green. So the level is set exactly where the MV7 says it should be set. And you're seeing green with some fade into yellow and hopefully never red. You are not seeing red. But if I'm going to look at it and leaning over to the side, I'm not really using proper mic technique, so I'm not getting an accurate reading of the level. And it's so close, green to yellow. I mean, even if it hits red, you can barely see it. So practically, as an audio meter, don't rely on this, I wouldn't say. You're going to have an audio meter in your app that you're recording in, the MOTIV app when you set it up, or a mixer if you're using XLR. You're going to have a meter that's going to show you exactly where you're at, hopefully in numerical terms, -6, -3, -12. That's how you're going to want to measure your audio levels. Not from this. This can give you a general indication, but as an audio meter, no, it looks great. The way you can modify it, which I'll show you, is even cooler, but it's more for visual than accurate audio level monitoring. And finally, on the outside, the USB connection has been upgraded to USB-C. The MV7 used the absolutely terrible microUSB to USB-C on the other side. Now it's USB-C, both sides, that's great. People always say, USB-C is so great. What is so great about it? Well, doesn't matter which way you put in the cable, and it seems to me that it's a more stable connection in that it stays in better than the micro. And it's more universal. You're seeing USB-C pretty much on most things these days. And as an added note, you can record out of the USB and the XLR at the same time. I'm actually doing that, USB-C into the computer, into software, and the XLR is going in to my mixer, which you are hearing now. So this is XLR. It's actually being processed through a compressor on the side of my desk. This is how I would process the audio for real time or in post-production. But now we're back to the USB, letting the microphone process the audio, which we're not doing a lot of processing right now. But if you have the need, you can record out of both of those at the same time. Don't really think that's the point of it. It's whether you need XLR or you need USB. And that USB, to me, is a huge advantage over the SM7B because it's easier to take on the road with you. It's easier to just use into a phone. It's easier to just use into your computer. You don't need additional devices like an audio interface in between your microphone and your computer or your phone. Okay, internally, what has changed? The DSP inside, the digital signal processing, and the MOTIV software, which I've opened up here, and I've actually switched to recording in software instead of recording in the MOTIV Mix app, which I was doing before, because I cannot record in that app and make the changes to the DSP at the same time. The first update comes to the auto gain feature, so you'll see that I'm on manual gain. I'm gonna go ahead and switch that to auto, and you don't hear a lot of difference. It might have actually gone down a little bit, and I'll show you why in a second. But this auto level feature is supposed to be enhanced for distance and direction. So whether I'm close to the microphone, really close to the microphone, or if I'm back off the microphone, we got to wait for the auto gain to catch up, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Waiting for the auto gain. There it is. All right, starting to kick in. The auto gain feature kicked in. It's gradual. It's not going to be a big swing up and down when you're too far or when you get too close. Obviously, I have the limiter on as well. So if I get really close and do it really fast, I can really hear the auto gain clamping down. In fact, oh my gosh, it's gotten so quiet. All right, there the auto gain is figuring it out where I should be. This is one reason to use auto gain, but also another reason to maybe not. It just matters how you want to produce. But the auto gain feature also is supposed to help when you are off microphone. So if I'm talking sort of on the side or down too low or up above the microphone, is supposed to try to help keep that sound consistent. So I think I can demo things better when I'm in manual mode. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this off and go back to manual mode. But let me show you the sound check feature, which I mentioned before, which is going to help you if you are using manual mode, but you are a little nervous about whether you are set up properly. So go up to sound check. It brings up an audio meter here and a start button, and you can see I'm at about plus 9 dB, which you actually don't see here. It's a slider, it's hard to tell, but you can see my audio levels going between -6 and -3. So I press start, we get a countdown of 3, 2, 1. Then we go ahead and speak into the microphone, and it's measuring our audio level as we talk, and then it's going to go ahead and complete, and it's going to tell you what you should be at, or what you are currently at and what you should be at. And it's telling me gain level is too high. It suggests a value of plus 6 dB, and I'm at plus 9 dB. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And so it has just brought it down to plus 6 dB, and that's where it is peaking more around that -12 to -6 area. And this is good for recording. It might not be where you want to be for a live stream, but in recording, this is fantastic. You'll have plenty of headroom, and you won't be bringing it up so much in post-production because you were too low that the ground floor is going to come up with it. But we do have a solution for that. Well, sort of. You don't want to record too low. So Soundcheck is a handy feature. So we're going to go ahead and let it be at that plus 6 dB. And on the left side of the MoTiV Mix app, you can see all the sources of audio that I have currently in my computer. And this works as a virtual mixer. I can bring any of these into the app, as well as MOTIV Mix itself. So if I want to share audio that's playing on my computer into the recording, I can go ahead and mix those in. And then of course, it has the built-in recorder, so you could do everything right here, which I was doing earlier, but need to not be doing right now so I can demo these features for you, because you cannot switch the settings in real time while you're recording, which is kind of a bummer. But let's go back into the settings for the MV7 Plus. And we're going to stick with the manual gain. Now, when you toggle down, you can see it tells me I'm at plus 6, and I have a slider to adjust that. What I would like to see is that when I'm not toggled down, it should tell me what it's at, 6. If you look here on the monitor section, it's telling me that the mic is at 92%, so I'm monitoring the audio that you're hearing. I'm monitoring in real time on the microphone, so there's no delay, so I can hear what you're hearing while I'm creating this demo. But you should always monitor your own audio. But you can see it's telling me that's at 92% volume in the PC, the audio that's going to come back to me if I've set the MV7 as my output, that's at 100%. I can see that whether I'm toggled up or down, on or off, however you want to say that. So a few of these settings, I would like to see that being present, especially something like the gain. So the next setting is the compressor, which is currently off. So you have light, medium, and heavy. We'll go to light here. That is a light compression. This is the medium compression setting, which you can hear the volume go up. So the makeup gain you can hear in there, and things are starting to sound a little more present, a little more crunchy to me, actually. And if we go to heavy, which, you might have that radio sound. You're hearing more of that low end rattle, mid chest sound of my voice. This is heavy compression. It's a little too high end and crunchy for me. So if I'm going to do any kind of compressing in the app, usually I'm going to do that in post-production, but maybe you are live streaming. I'm going to go ahead and use light in my case. So I'm going to leave that on. You have a limiter here. It's as simple as toggling it on off. Sometimes limiters can change the way the audio sounds when I toggle off or whether I toggle on. I do not hear a difference. So of course I'm going to keep the limiter on just for added protection, even though I'm using proper mic technique and my levels are correct. You never know. I'll keep the limiter on. Tone is where something has changed a bit. You used to have those various EQ settings that were more closely matched to what you have on the back of the SM7B. And you're hearing natural, which is basically flat. Dark would be if we boosted that low end instead of cut it, and then bright if we boosted that top end. And I found for me, I like to be at about a 40% darker. So that is maybe right there. You can see this needs an update because I can't tell where that's at until I toggle back up, and it now tells me I'm at 40% dark. So this is one of those settings where I definitely want to be able to see the number, whether I'm toggled up or down, on or off in the app. So when I toggle down, it's gone. And if I hold this and move it, I have no idea what the number is. So that's just an update they need to do to the software. You're seeing a beta version, so hopefully that'll change. Sure, go ahead and change that. But 40% dark is where I like my voice. It's a little bit of that low end, but not too much. We'll go ahead and slide this all the way dark. So that's 100% dark. I'm not hearing a drastic difference. Typically that would be too muddy for my own liking, but that's 100% dark. We go back to natural. You can hear it a little bit more maybe. And then we're going to go all the way up to bright, full brightness, which is that high-end boost. You can hear it gets very bright, crackly. So almost this part of my voice nasally, and then the dark on the other end would be more of a chest sound, a deeper sound. And then natural would be kind of just flat. We're not enhancing anything. And then of course for me right now, 40% dark I think is where I'm happy, and I just got lucky and it tells me I'm at 40% dark. Reverb, we're always keeping off. I think they threw that in just so they could also say the mic was for musicians. You could use reverb, but just do it in post-production instead. And don't use reverb, actually. The real-time denoiser is my favorite setting because it works so well and is transparent. So I'm going to turn this off. You can go ahead and listen to the ambience of this room. So if you put on headphones, you should be able to hear basically fans. This light has a fan going. The computer, with all the different ways I'm recording, the screen and the audio, its fan is going constantly. And then so when I go ahead and use the real-time denoise, you'll hear the noise floor, and then you'll hear it click in. It'll capture what that noise is and reduce it. So listen to that with headphones on. Here we go. Noise floor. Gone, like that. And you're not hearing it. It's not just a noise gate, which when I'm not talking, it shuts off the microphone essentially. This is noise reduction, because in a noise gate, if I talked, the noise floor would still be there. Now I can hear it a little bit, but the real-time denoiser is doing a great job at actually capturing the noise print and reducing that noise in real-time denoiser. So that's my favorite feature, because most of us creating content are in a space that is going to have some kind of noise in it. And then we usually go into post-production. You might need to buy an expensive plugin, whether it's subscription-based or a one-time purchase, or you find some free app that you have to like take the audio out of your editor, put it into that app, and then bring it back in. However you're denoising, this is just going to do it in real time. And it's going to save you a lot of time in the post-production process. But also for live streaming, which is the real key for me, because if you're in a place where it's really cold or really hot, anywhere where you have to use HVAC, heater, or an air conditioner, you can have that running with the real-time denoise on a live stream, and it's going to sound professional, like you're actually in a studio. We say we're in studios, we're often just in our homes. This makes that sound fantastic. And that's what's exciting to me about the real-time denoiser. I'm actually going to increase the noise floor. I'm going to go turn on an air filter, and then we'll listen to the real-time denoise do its thing again. All right, so I've turned on an air filter at 100%. The thing is really going. Let's listen to the noise floor headphones. Check it out. That's really loud. I can see it in the waveform when I'm quiet. Let's see what the real-time denoiser does for that. No longer on the waveform, that's for sure. And when I'm talking, it's under there, but wow, it's pretty quiet. And so the key is that like it's doing real-time denoising and it's not changing my voice that much. I think it's taking out a little bit of low end, and you can dial that back in with the tone settings, but it is mostly handling that noise and allowing me to be in a pretty noisy environment while also getting pretty clean audio. Now, ideally, you wouldn't record this way, but if you had to, it works pretty well. But where it's going to work best is when you have a little bit of noise floor, which is what I would have without the air cleaner on. I don't need that on. I turn that off, and now noises that I can't avoid, like my computer because I'm using it to record, that's being removed. It's subtle, but if I turned off the real-time denoise like right now, it's still there. It's subtle, but I wouldn't want my audio to sound like that. So I turn on the real-time denoise, and that's gone. Favorite feature, that's why I spent so much time with it there. And let's move on. We have popper stopper. So with popper stopper off, extreme plosives would sound like this. That's air hitting the microphone. That's not great. Go ahead and make that same sound with the popper stopper on. Off. On. And so it's not completely stopping it, but what I can hear it doing is removing the lower end, the boomier part of a pop. It's removing that. Essentially what it's doing is it's just EQing a piece of the frequency range, and we can hear doing that. Plosives tend to be in a lower end of the frequency range, and so it's taking out some of that, but it's not reducing the lower end of my voice. Now again, we could increase that with the tone setting, but I still think it sounds good even with it on for my voice. But I'm in a great position for recording and not very susceptible to plosives, but this also depends on how you speak. How extreme are your plosives? So this might be helpful for you. And it's pretty transparent, so I don't have a problem recording with it on. And just like the limiter, it provides a safety net in those situations where a P or a B or something overloads the microphone. This can help. And then you have a high pass filter. And I just mentioned that the popper stopper is basically cutting some of that low end. So why do I need a popper stopper and a high pass filter? So the popper stopper is obviously removing a very specific part of the frequency range, and the high pass filter is going to give us a little bit more control. We could completely remove 75 hertz and down, and I'm going to go ahead and click that on. That's 75 hertz and down. That would be the lowest end of my voice, but most voices don't even reach that low. So you can clean up some of that noise floor that might be down there, or some tapping on the desk, or if you hit the microphone stand, some of that low end, if I turn that off, it's a little different. It's still there, it's just different, but 75 is pretty safe to record at because most voices aren't down there. You might as well remove that noise. 80 hertz to 150 is going to start cutting into that lower end of your voice. So I can go ahead and put that on. And that's what this sounds like. Now, I do have the tone set at 40% dark, so it doesn't make an extreme difference here. 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, there went the light. All right, that is off high pass filter. This is 150 high pass filter. So depending on who is on the microphone, you might be able to just go ahead and increase this to 150 hertz and cut out some of that low end noise. But the high pass filter, in addition to the popper stopper, which we don't really know where the popper stopper is reducing, the high pass filter gives you a little bit more options to cut that low end if you needed to. And then of course the LEDs, I have them set to live. There is a pulsing that is almost certainly just for looks because it's not reacting to my voice the way that obviously live would be. And there is solid. If you just want solid color, there would be the Shure color in this case, but you can change the color. If you go to custom here, this is actually pretty cool because they have swatches of colors. I can go red. These are preset colors and it won't change until I hit save. And now we're red, which is dangerous because that's also the color of mute. So you probably don't want to use that. And I think I said before that you could turn it off if you wanted. It doesn't really seem like that's possible as I'm digging into these settings again. However, if you wanted to come here and change it to solid, go to custom and then set it to black, we could save that. And now it, blacks the color of the microphone, but you can't really see it. It doesn't show up almost as anything from what I can tell. So that is kind of a way to turn it off. That said, it kind of looks like it's off, kind of looks like something's not working on your microphone. So you might want to just go with a color. I'll go back to the Shure, just set it to the low brightness and keep it solid. It at least then looks like, hey, the microphone is on and working. But for me, I actually do like the live metering behavior, not for the audio metering, just the way it looks. It might be distracting to you. But one of the very cool things you can do with the colors is come into the custom section and you can set the various range colors. So here I am If I want to change the main range to a green, and then the next section to a red, and the last section to this aqua, we could go ahead and save that, and we have our own custom green, red, aqua setting, whatever matches your brand. So that could be cool. This is obviously some of the more fun features as opposed to useful, but again, if it matches your background or your brand, or it's just something you enjoy, then it's very useful for you. For someone who doesn't care for LEDs on their microphone, I do enjoy the amount of customization I have. Makes it look good to me, and it's done subtly enough to look fine on the microphone. And then finally, back to the mute situation. You know, if I'm streaming, it's a long session, I might want to adjust the microphone a little bit. I'm almost certainly going to put my finger right on that mute button. I certainly have done that plenty of times. In this case, I have the mute locked, but if I unlock it and then I grab it, then I very easily muted myself. And if you're not monitoring your own audio, you won't know it. So that'd be very bad for your recording. So an update that I would like to see is maybe a double tap to mute, or give us the option to set how the mute is triggered. That would be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and keep it locked so I do not inevitably touch it and lose my audio. All right, those are all the internal settings that you can change and mess with the MV7 Plus. All right, and to move into a little bit of mic comparison. Don't need to really compare it to the original MV7. That really hasn't changed. They sound the same. You can check out the other video for that. But let's pull in the SM7B here, the mic that inspired the Shure MV7 and the MV7 Plus. You can see why they look very similar. And what's different for me this time, I saw the original MV7 catch on in the space. I'm seeing the microphone everywhere. The same way you would see the SM7B everywhere, I'm starting to see the MV7 everywhere, and I imagine the MV7 Plus pretty soon, because it does act as a nice alternative to the SM7B. If you don't want to pay that much money, you don't want to get the additional equipment like an audio interface or even a gain booster because it's such a quiet microphone, or you want to go into your phone, which the USB is going to allow you to do, or you want to go direct to the computer and skip all that other stuff, the MV7 gives you that option, plus the processing. So for a new podcast that needs 2 or 3 of these microphones, then get a couple MV7s, maybe 3 for the price of one SM7B and the stuff you need to go with it. And you can hear as I go back and forth on these 2 microphones, the SM7B doesn't sound so dramatically different that when you get the MV7, you're disappointed because it doesn't sound like an SM7B. Some people would say different. This is obviously extremely subjective. So this is your chance to go back and forth between the 2. It's not about which one necessarily you think sounds better, or is it an SM7B exactly? Is it a good proxy for an SM7B? If you get on camera and you have this microphone, it looks like an SM7B, except for the big Shure branding. I would love to be able to take that off, honestly, because the barrel style of the SM7B being plain black like that, I think looks way better. It's less distracting. It just looks cooler. Looks more pro, which it is technically more pro, but not extremely different. So that's just it. Can you get the MV7 or MV7 Plus and be happy with it in terms of how it sounds? I think definitely. One difference I do notice is that I feel like the MV7 and the MV7 Plus are a lot more susceptible to handling noise. They seem very delicate in terms of noises being either on the mic stand, on the desk that the mic stand is attached to, or when you grab it to move it. If there's one thing you see a lot of, it's people adjusting their microphone during a stream. I often will grab a microphone and move it a little bit. Now that could have to do with the arm that it's on, but the SM7B seems to do a better job at handling it. You see people adjust these knobs all the time. I can do that without really introducing that into the microphone. Certainly not as much as the MV7 does. It's very sensitive to the handling noise, and you can hear when I move it on the microphone stand. So I think handling noise is something you need to be careful with, but in this case, I'm on a microphone stand that's not attached to the desk, so it doesn't matter what I do on the desk. It's not going to get into that microphone. I think when you have a microphone stand that is on the desk, the MV7 is very susceptible to hearing noises you make on the desk travel through the mic stand and into the microphone. Okay, so push that out of here. We're back to the MV7 Plus only. Who should buy this microphone? Who is it for? If you're watching this video and you have an MV7, the original, should you upgrade to the MV7 Plus? Certainly not for sound. If you like the way it looks better, because now a lot of podcasts are on video, so we are on streams, on podcasts. Microphones are in the shot a lot. If the improvements to the look of the touch panel, the elongated windscreen, if that just looks the way you would rather have your microphone look, and you have the budget, yes, go ahead and upgrade. You're going to spend a lot of time on that microphone. You might as well have the one you want. If you want some of the features like the popper stopper, or especially the real-time denoise, then the MV7 Plus is an upgrade you may want to get. But sound-wise, if you have an MV7 already, you're not going to go get an MV7 Plus and suddenly sound so much better that it's worth an upgrade. If you have an SM7B, adding the MV7 Plus certainly makes you more portable. You can just take this microphone with just a USB cable, go into your phone or a computer, much easier to travel with or do social content. But more likely, if you're the person who is thinking about getting an SM7B and you think, can I get MV7 Plus instead? You can. I think you can. It sounds similar enough. It now even looks more like the SM7B, and it's got Shure's classic great build quality, so I think it's going to last. And if you don't have any microphone, then yes, I would go with the MV7 Plus over the MV7. The added features for just maybe $30, $40 more are worth it to me. But if the MV7 is in your budget, you can still get that microphone and sound great. I have the all black version. There's also a white version that looks pretty cool. So if that fits your style better, you can get one of those. And then I personally would love to see, like the MV7X, which I also did a video on, which is XLR only, I would love to see a USB only option. Now it's good to have both, because if you go from USB and you upgrade, like you want to add more microphones into your mix, then having XLR is a great option for different interfaces you may want to plug into. Although with the virtual mixer, they've made using multiple USB microphones a much easier, better option than it's ever been. So if you had a USB only option, it would be a price reduction. You'd have all the great features, and you could use multiple USB microphones inside the MOTIV Mix software. So I would love to see an even more affordable USB option. Just an idea, that'd be cool. That's the Shure MV7 Plus. Let me know what you think. What microphone do you have? Do you have a microphone? Would you upgrade? Would you get this microphone? Let me know in the comments. I will answer as quickly as possible, and I will see you next time.